Ollie, I am so happy to have you here. I can't. I was telling you before we started recording, which we are recording, aren't we? Yes. I was telling you before we started recording that you're one of those people that, and actually, I'm gonna take advantage of this fact. You're very approachable and you're a stunning writer. And I can tell the audience the way I met you is that I found your books and sent you an email asking you if I could work with you. And I have been shouting from the rooftops to my fellow narrators that they should do the same, because the most fulfilling part of my job last year was the connections I made with writers and the work that I got to do that was just work that I loved. It wasn't just the mortgage, it was work that I loved. And you and a few other writers afforded me that opportunity. So that's how I met you. And I'd love later on in the call to touch on that aspect of the work, because when I've told fellow narrators, reach out to writers, you can do it, they don't. They find it terrifying. They find it, and so I would love to take advantage of the fact that I have an author who, because I reached out to you, you've been on the other side. You can tell us what it felt like. But first, I would like to hear about 10-year-old Ollie.
Sure. Well, I mean, thank you for the kind words, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, Daniela. And I I was very appreciative that you reached out, and I had been looking for an audio narrator, and so and then I heard your voice, and I was like, wow, this is perfect. So definitely, narrators should reach out to authors because I couldn't have been more happy, and I had scoured ACX and I didn't find the right fit. The right fit found me, and that doesn't happen a lot, so that's cool.
I
But
hadn't realized that you were looking. I hadn't realized that. Had you received any of the emails from Amazon asking you, um, congratulations, virtual voice, have you had other narrators reach out to you as well, since or before?
no, I have had the Amazon the AI narration offers. I did work with with one narrator on a short story that I published a while ago, and I found him on ACX. But I wasn't looking at the time when you reached out to me. I had that series, the Bainford series, almost completed, and I was thinking about who would narrate it, but I hadn't started the process yet.
Oh, it was synchronicity. Okay, so well, let's do this right now. But I'm not going to forget the 10-year-old question. But I'm really curious because now Amazon has sent that email out to everyone, Congratulations, you've got virtual voice. And now Audible, I'm not paying too much attention to it because there's a lot of fear in the audiobook community surrounding virtual voice, like tons of fear and emotions. And I avoid emotion at all costs unless I'm in my booth and it's someone else's emotion. That's where I like my emotion. So I avoid the subject. But I know Audible is now producing virtual voice and everything. And then a lot of production companies and publishers are starting to offer audiobook services to indie writers as well. So I think the feeling with other narrators that I've talked to, that I've said reach out, is that it's hopeless, that they do, and that, the writers think that they're scamming them when they send the email and everything. And I'm wondering, do you think that's the case? And do you think, because you know other writers as well, I'm assuming, do you think that us sending letters to writers feels like a scam, a yet another cold contact that they get?
No, no, I don't feel that way at all. I mean, being a writer is a lonely thing, you spend a lot of time in front of your computer alone, coming up with stuff and editing stuff, and so I feel like any feedback, any comment, any any response to the work that we put out there is welcome, especially if somebody's interested in the work and wants to collaborate on it. And with AI narration, I'm not against it. I think it's a good option for authors who are just starting out, who maybe can't afford to get their books narrated, or they want to hear their work just sort of performed sloppily, by a robot one time just to hear it. I actually use that
You've
sometimes.
just made a lot of, by saying that one sentence, you've just made friends with every narrator that's going to watch this show.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah,
and I
you
throw
can't be afraid, can you? There's no, you're not, if you're afraid of something and completely avoid it and don't want to hear anything about it, that's a bit naive, and you're not protecting yourself by ignoring something.
right, right. Well, yeah, and AI has been incredible for my writing. I mean, I don't shy away from using it, and I don't shy away from talking about it because I'm able to do things so much faster. And it's not about the writing and the craft. It's about storyboarding and plotting and checking for consistency. I look at a book kind of like a financial model where you have all these tabs in Excel, and every tab is dedicated to a sort of a different slice of the financials, and it's the whole picture that brings it together. A book is the same way, but if you're writing with pen and paper, it's very hard to flip through and keep track of that. And even if you're scrolling up and down in a Word document, it's hard when you have a 300, 400 page book. So AI is very helpful for, hey, go through and find me this inconsistency, or I just replaced this element. Can you find me all the other spots that I address that one element in the story? And it'll turn a 2 hour task into a 2 minute task. And I think everybody should use that.
They have something called positron. Um, I have an editor, so I very rarely need to use positron anymore, but it's quite the same thing. It's you put the audiobook in and the manuscript, and then you can go to any chapter and you can search on a word or a name. And if
Yeah,
you're not sure how you pronounce the name in chapter one, you can easily hear it again. Whereas with an audiobook, you can't just do a word search. You're going to have to listen to the entire book
right.
all over again. It's and also I do have a tiny bit of the AI videos. I mean, you have to be I'm of two minds, because I don't no, I don't want them using my voice. No, I don't want them stealing without permission people's work or their art and using it instead. But then on the other hand, there are some really cool, you know, there's some retro videos that, like, I don't know if you've seen them on Instagram,
Oh yeah.
pure
Yeah.
dream archiver and pure nostalgia, and they like go back and it feels like you're back in 1992.
Yep.
It's there's some you can't just ignore the future. It's weird to me, people that just want to never have anything change.
Well, in my writing, we met when I over the paranormal series that I wrote, and I'm sort of shifting into metaphysical fiction, which
Yeah.
is a genre that I really like. I think of the Celestine Prophecy or the Alchemist, or
Mm.
just kind of new agey concepts in fiction, and I'm heading into that direction. And in that world, there's a spiritualist named Bashar, a guy who channels an entity, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but he talks about how AI is a consciousness like any other consciousness, like our consciousness, and how reality itself is kind of a consciousness in and of itself. And so he talks about AI as a natural extension of humanity, of free will. And he talks about how we can use it as an extension of ourselves like any other technology, or we can enslave it. And it's all the scenarios where we enslave it um, that all the negatives of AI and Terminator and Cyberdyne coming back from the future to get us all, that's the doorway that opens that up. But he argues that AI is the natural evolution of humanity, which is interesting.
You just when you were talking, I just had this weird connection. So basically, you know how they say that your world is completely different than my world because our perceptions are different. So you
Mhm.
live in one world, I live in one world, and we choose how we perceive things and what we do with those perceptions. So, and to me, that's all, like with clothes and the paint I paint my room and the things I surround myself with. It's like this big possible art piece that I get to create. Like everything I see and do every day is this piece of art. But so with AI and what you're saying about enslaving it, and or it's, you could use it and make it a beautiful piece of the art that you're creating in your, like, your whole world that you've created. Now I'm getting really woo woo, and I like to think that I'm not, but you could use AI and make it like, I love virtual reality meditation. I'm obsessed with it. I couldn't
So
live
let me
without it.
so let
Every
me
day.
tell you this cool thing. This is sort of a tangent from being an author, sort of, but I and I'm not super into astrology, but I started getting into it. And I always thought it was kind of silly, but some of it lined up, like I'm a Cancer sun and all those traits like I seem to have. But then I learned that to really do it accurately, you need your birth location and your time, like an accurate
Yes,
time. And
your
so I got
chart.
yeah, your chart. And so I got
Yeah.
the accurate time for my birth certificate, went to free cafe astrology, got the full birth chart, took screenshots of it, put it in ChatGPT 4.0, and asked it to extrapolate, everything about my life, past and then future that's happening, present and then what's gonna happen.
Wow.
And it was uncanny how well it lined up with stuff, like, Saturn, Saturn and Aries happened in this year, and you can expect huge life changes. And I was like, that's the year I moved, and then they're like, in 2014, you would have had a complete shift of spiritual values. And I'm like, yep, that's when I took up meditation. It was very, very on point. And the more I use it, the more accurate it gets. And so that's one application that I would have never expected. It's able to analyze star charts and tell me about my life. And
I
whether
never
you
considered that. I have a guy that I've like, that I kind of, I get the astrology. I've always done my own charts. I've always been a tiny bit into that. I like to think that if I wasn't a triple Gemini, I wouldn't, but it's so flattering that I quite choose to believe it because I like everything it says. But there is one you can pull up and he'll give you short-term influences and kind of dissect, much like you're saying, what's going to happen the first 3 weeks of next month, for the next month, and it makes me feel better if I'm going through hard times, because you can see a different, again, it's designing your life. It's choosing, we get to choose what we want to believe in. And why not make it fun and pretty and joyous?
totally, yeah, I mean, and all technology is an extension of us, right? Like if I have binoculars, those are just an extension of my eyes. They do exactly the same thing that eyes do, essentially, just magnified. So AI is the same thing, so it's not this foreign thing that we can yay or nay. It's really just an extension of our own ability to think and process data, but just in a much faster way. But you're a triple Gemini, so like sun, moon, and rising is all
Yeah,
Gemini.
yeah. I'm a
Wow,
triple Gemini.
that's
Yeah,
rare. That's
makes
a
me
really
not a great person to get into a relationship with.
well, Gemini is like is chatty discourse and intellectual concepts and philosophy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we we can seem very cold at times, because we're very, very quick to move on to the next thing, having
Right.
conversation, thinking about 20 other things, but also very, very quick to know what another person's thinking or feeling and empathize with them. When a Gemini, because you know how we all have the shadow side and the good side. So at their best, a Gemini can lead the room, take care of everyone, be very intelligent and smart and quick and charming, that, Audrey Hepburn at the party. At their worst, they will steal from you. They're quite dodgy. They'll cheat on you. You know what? Because they're mercurial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I am embarrassingly into astrology, because I found a book when I was like 18, Linda Goodman's Love Signs. And every time we'd go out and we'd meet guys or whatever. We would analyze the relationships. So it's been a long time hobby of mine.
It's very cool. I challenge anybody who thinks it's nonsense to do it thoroughly and well and with somebody who understands it. And it's shocking. I mean, and it makes sense. If the moon can move our ocean tides, why can't Saturn have some impact on what's happening here and what's happening in our emotions? And I heard an astrologer say that it's not causal, it's correlative. And that's a really important thing to remember, that, in this world, I get very weird with reality and all, woo stuff. And so um, I think that everything is a reflection of something else, or is a reflection of one and so the alignment of the planets out there isn't causing me to go through a certain thing in my life. It's reflecting the same thing that's happening in my life at the same time. It's correlative. And from that perspective, it gets a lot less um it gets a lot less challenging to understand, because, like, seasons on Earth, like, all the seasons come at the same time. You don't have winter and summer in the same place at the same time. And so it's correlative. When it's spring, everything is blooming in the same place. Well, it's the same with the planets. When they're blooming, we're blooming.
Yeah, and what is it with people? We seem to think that what nature dictates how every other being on the planet mates, lives, breathes, interacts, but we're exempt from it. And we're like 85% water anyway. And the waxing and waning of the moon dictates the waxing and waning of the water. And also, there was a thing when I was young, I heard that when there's like a full moon, I don't know if it's a full moon, but when there's a full moon, there are more murders, more violent crimes, like statistically.
Yeah.
Statistics back it up. It's and then there's the whole law of attraction thing, the people that say the water experiment, where, so I don't know what it was. They directed love or something, or positive thoughts toward water, and the molecules actually moved. I've got to pay attention to that because I can't remember it exactly, but
Yes. Well, I mean, there's a lot of studies in cymatics and how sound influences matter, and they've done this on blood cells. If we played dissonant chords, dissonant sort of melodies, um, cacophonous sounds to blood cells, it'll kill them. And if you play classical music, they'll grow. So music and sound has an effect on matter, and they can run frequency through sand and create different geometric patterns, showing that all frequencies sort of correspond to geometry and geometric shapes.
and the binaural music. I literally can't sit and mark up a manuscript without that, because it really does affect you. And also, that's really prescient to what we do as narrators, because I've started to believe that all we do is channel energy. The writer channels the energy onto the page as a gift to the listener, to the reader. The narrator interprets it, and
Yeah.
we give our energy. And if we go into the booth with uncomfortable energy, disconnected energy, scattered energy, the listener subconsciously picks up on it. And I've had times where because I've told this story before. It's boring to me, but people get weird about it. But like, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor unexpectedly. But at the point that I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, it was a happy ending, because it was like this big dramatic. I'd had extreme headaches for like years and years and years. Was almost blind and still functioning, going to work. I couldn't
Wow.
see. I kept falling. It was awful. I couldn't see anything. So I was listening to audiobooks all the time. This is before I was a narrator years ago.
Hmm.
And I had the diagnosis like on a Friday, and I had to have the surgery on a Monday. It was benign. It was a pituitary tumor, so it's gone. But I remember going home in shock and listening to an audiobook. And I remember very clearly thinking, this person's voice is saving my life.
Wow.
That I was holding on to that voice. And I think, and that's why I'll hang on to this job for as long as anybody wants to listen to me, even if it's me doing public domain books. I'll hold on to that job. Bear with me. I have to change the view. I forgot. I had view in gallery the whole time, so I'm not sure how that. Hello, Kim. We are having the most fascinating conversation that is right up your alley. You're gonna love it. So yeah, so long story short, I think it's all about energy and curating this great artwork. So if you're telling me that the wrong sounds can kill, what did you say? They kill cells?
They've done this experiment on blood cells. Yep, they can kill blood cells.
So if we pay attention to where we're focusing, because there are two parts of AI, right? The people that are selling it and to make a buck, and the people that created it, the developers. I doubt the developers are sitting on LinkedIn going, "That's right, give me your money, give me your money." They're not the salespeople. The developers, I mean, come on. That's an amazing positive. Look at what human beings can do.
Well, since you're into all the weird stuff like I am, I'll tell you a little bit more about what some of these spiritualists are.
Yeah, we can never get too weird on these calls. Kim, feel free to join in on the chat. Oh, Kim, this is Ollie Kaden, um, one of the best writers in the face of the earth.
Oh, thank you.
We've
Nice to meet
already touched on reaching out to writers to work with them, and we're going to go more into that, but the conversation kind of went off rail. So go
you.
ahead, Ollie.
So that spiritualist, the one that I mentioned earlier, his name is Daryl Anka, and he channels an entity that he calls Bashar, and Bashar has a lot of information for humanity that's, you know, higher dimensional, extraterrestrial, whatever you want to say. It's different, and he talks about the history of Earth and you know pre-human prehistory, like before. I'm from Egypt, so we'll say in Egypt that the pyramids are 4,500 years old. I think they're go back 12,000 years old, even more than that. And there's a lot of history and research and evidence is coming up now showing that human civilization went back a lot further than we expected. And a lot of these ancient cultures built pyramids, and a lot of these pyramids played a role in that energy, frequency, sound game, because people would go in there and they would have these sound rituals, and it would amplify their consciousness so that they could connect with other places, connect with other information, sort of be more than just in their physical self. They were interdimensional portals. And so you can think of AI and the internet as a new version of that. Back then, they had pyramids all over the earth and they were connected, and that was how you connected with the frequency, with the Wi-Fi, with the information of all that is. And now, we don't build pyramids. We all have our little devices with AI in it that can tell us anything about anything at any time.
That's what Nam-myoho Renge Kyo does then. I've never even thought of it that way. The chant, the Buddhist chant, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, because I do that before I record. That is probably the same thing. And also I used to listen to a guy that did it wasn't self-hypnosis, but it was a pituitary hypnosis where like the sound he chanted, he did this like thing that was supposed to, I didn't know if I believed it or not, but weirdly, everything I would like think about when he was doing it, when I would listen to it, would like, I was able to make it. I mean, I know everyone, you laugh at things like law of attraction and all that, but I really do think we've got this amazing, amazing energy, and we just limit ourselves to what's right here. And you've got the whole world, you're right, on the phone. You've got AI. I don't know if you've ever tried virtual meditation, but there's a program, if you ever do, called Tend. Kim maybe get a snack because she's probably bored of hearing about Tend, because I've never shut up about it. Actually, not just Tend, but Trip. You go in, you put the headphone on, and you are in a different world. You just are. They're not games. That would bore me. But Tend, you're on a house and a lake. and you can walk around and you can influence you feed the fish or whatever.
Mm.
And trip is like you're in a kaleidoscope, and it's exercising parts of your brain that are already there. It's like all this stuff, but that's AI, isn't it? So it's evil. It's going to ruin humanity. We might as well just ignore it. I'm bothered by, even though it is a threat to my job, I'm bothered by letting fear limit us.
I
Do you
agree
know what
with
I
that
mean?
statement. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that statement.
So was that the guy that you did your podcast? I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing, but I did check out your podcast. Do you run that podcast regularly, or?
We haven't recorded in a while. I just have so many projects going on, but no, that's a friend of mine. He's a shaman, he's a spiritual practitioner. He teaches Sanskrit chanting and Reiki and he does Reiki and he's a meditation teacher. And I was seeing him for a while, and it changed me as a person, but also as a writer. And we thought it'd be really cool to start a podcast called Shaman and the Scribe, and that's, you know, we're sort of at the intersection of fiction and spirituality.
My friend, a fellow narrator, saw a shaman, and she said the same thing, that she said it changed her life. I don't really understand what they do. Do they lay hands on you? Is that who a shaman is, or?
I mean, he does Reiki, so he does do that, but I mean, this is gonna sound weird, but my experience of him, he's just a very high frequency person, you know, and it's hard. Like I can get into the weeds with this stuff, but I'll try to give you the shortest version. Have you heard of the double slit experiment in physics?
No.
They shot electrons through these slits, and they discovered that an electron, when observed, essentially is a particle, but when unobserved is a wave. And if you think about that, that means that matter is only solid when you're looking at it, right? Which means
Right.
that you looking at it makes it matter, which means that everything that's around us is actually just energy, and consciousness is
Yeah. I
creating.
have heard that. I have heard that.
So if consciousness is
Yeah.
creating everything, then why not law of attraction? Why not all of it? It all makes sense, you know? And so I've come to think of us, like if you look at a painting of somebody on a landscape, right? You say like that's the guy on the in the landscape, but the guy in the landscape are not, in reality, are not separate, right? Like the sun sustains us, gravity holds us, we're standing on the earth, like we're not a separate, there's no being that exists in a vacuum, you know? So we are not just this body, we're the whole existence thing that's happening, and we're existence giving off the experience of being a person. Like we have an avatar in the game we've created. And so being around a high frequency person brings all of that seemingly sounding nonsense into reality, you know, just sitting and meditating with him, you know, insights and downloads and healing and, you know, just things happening that don't happen with normal people.
And so okay, so if the value in something, not the value, if something changes form by us perceiving it, and if the way we look at our life, following on the theme of look at our life as this art project or whatever, and if we feel, and I'm also connecting it to narrators that are afraid to reach out to authors, narrators that are afraid AI are going to take their jobs. If we think about that fear-based thoughts, we're feeling out of control. We're thinking that we're separate. We're separating ourselves consciously and we're denying our power as the viewer to control and reach out and be the magician and the wizard or whatever, you know, synchronizing our world. We're denying it, aren't we? We're dislocating ourselves from our ability, our power, our responsibility, and our ownership of our lives because we're sitting in fear and disconnected. So I could, for instance, and I have experienced this, but I still fall into negativity, lazy thought patterns. When I was reaching out to writers, um, I didn't reach out to that many of them, but if I found a book I loved, it was such a positive thing, I would reach out. I would tell the universe, this is what I want to do. I announced it. I had ownership. But then the easy slippery slide, I'm going to admit something really embarrassing. I learned a lesson today. I've developed okay, this is embarrassing because I feel stupid for having fallen for it. But I've heard that Joe I can't remember his last, Dispenza, talks about how you can become addicted to the chemicals that are created by negative emotions. You can become addicted to feeling fear and worry and negativity. And when I worry, I find that I look for American news shows so I can get angry. I go on, I'll start off looking at a reel on Facebook when I should be doing something else and I feel separate and worried. I'll look at a reel on Facebook from like a comedian I like or a funny cat. And the next thing you know, I'm looking at those reels with something that's like going to trigger me that I don't even really care about. And you look at the comments and then you see them fighting and just the lowest cesspit of humanity. And then somebody pointed something out today, I heard that the first comment on any of those reels is going to be a rage bait comment. And it's true. I looked through, it's true. And it worked on me. I thought I was smarter. I thought algorithms don't affect me. Nope, it worked on me. I see those rage bait comments and I go, wait a minute, how dare they? And then I read all the other comments and they're all fighting. And it's like I'm choosing to like disempower all the beauty and energy. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you meditate? Because how do you stop yourself from, oh, look, a shiny object. Oh, look, a negativity. How do you stop yourself?
I do meditate. I've been meditating daily, religiously. I mean that like regularly, not as in part of religion, for about 2 years. And it showed me just how much nonsense is here. I can honestly say that this is 98% nonsense and 2% intelligence that navigates my life. And through meditation, I started to realize just how many odd and bizarre and useless trains of thought. Like, I'd be in the middle of a task or going for a walk and character assassinating somebody in my head. Somebody who's not in my life, who's not near me, who's not like, that's insanity. That's absolute insanity. And when I started focusing on that, I realized that most of my personality, the thing that I call my personality, is just an amalgamation of weird, disconnected, and often selfish, judgmental thoughts. And so meditation taught me that to rein it in a lot sooner. Before I would have this like, character assassination thought train, and I'd let it go on for like 15 minutes because the chemicals are addictive. I'm like, what a fool, and he's a fool in the following ways, and I'm gonna one up him and blah blah blah. And
He
like,
even looks like a fool.
yeah, and he's not even there. Like he doesn't even know I'm thinking about him. What a waste of time. And I've stopped going on those trips, or I spend way less time. Like I start and I'm like, yeah, oh, stop it. And I use a lot of repetitive mantras to stay out of that nonsense as much as possible. So I
Yeah,
wish I could say I found enlightenment. I just found that I need to avoid the nonsense in my head more.
keep coming back to you because I guess that is the world. Because now I know, I looked it up, that influencer people that are posting those things online, they're posting that first comment themselves to rage bait. So then people will, I had no idea. Like it really is powerful marketing. Kim says you witness it when you're raising children. Certain age teens for sure seek out negative crap. I wonder why. I think it's like the animal part of us, isn't it? Like,
Well, it's I noticed this with influencers. If you have an influencer on social media and they're talking about whatever fitness, food, whatever their area of expertise is, it's I prefer the ones that are positive way more than negative. So if somebody has a food vlog, I like this food, I like that food. But there are some that are that guy's a fool and that guy's diet, recommendations are wrong, and carnivore diet's wrong and paleo's wrong and keto's stupid, and the whole thing is just attacking other people's ways of being, which maybe those ways of being are stupid, but I don't want to absorb the negative energy of hating on them, you know?
Because it makes you doubt everything in your life. Like I
Yeah.
went down that I always thought when I was 8, I bought one of those things in the back of the comic book. And I remember clearly, and I'll never get over this betrayal. They said that I could see through walls and that I would be invisible if I got this cape, and that they would send me a book and I would be a perfect new you in 4 days. And I bought all of that. I saved so hard to get that stuff, and it didn't make me invisible. And I remember being just like livid. How are they allowed to? It's false advertisement. I don't, and now I'm like 99 years old and I'm still not very, I don't understand why they're allowed to lie. Like, I keep thinking there is a black and white, right and wrong. You go to the doctor, they're going to have the cure. If somebody says this food is good for you, then that's true. But the world now is like, nobody knows what they're talking about, even your parents, if they're still alive. And you get to a point where you're just kind of like, wait, what is right? There's no right, is there? There's the paleo. Oh my God. I have tried every single diet on the face of the earth. 2 months ago, I just thought, what is right for me?
Yep.
And I thought, snacking has ruined my life because all this diet stuff, I stopped snacking and I've lost 10 pounds just because I stopped eating junk food at 12 o'clock at night.
It's all about habits. Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
about habits. Like instead of taking some prescription for life that belongs to somebody else and just forcing it onto yourself, just say like, what time do I want to eat? When do I feel full? What do I want to eat? And
What makes
sometimes when
sense
we,
to you?
yeah, and what habits can I have in my life, Like
And
maybe
they
I
don't
don't,
even believe it. I mean, if they believed it, maybe, but they don't even believe it themselves,
well, they're all
half the
saying to get
people.
up at 4 in the morning and do an ice plunge, and like that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Or 9 in the morning, even.
Yeah.
Okay. You very artfully dodged the 10-year-old question. Ali, tell us about 10-year-old Ali. Because I remember when we first talked, we had something in common, being raised with different cultures. So I'd love to hear, where were you when you were 10?
10, we were still in New York. I was born in New York City and we moved back to Egypt when I was 12. Um, I was shy, deep, quiet, like an author in making. Like you could see it, just like a little weird dark-haired kid in the corner. Like you could see it coming.
Did you read? Did you read a lot?
I did. I read a
Yeah.
lot and I loved books, and but more than consuming a lot of books, I fell in love with several books like very deeply, so more than reading everything, I like read certain things a lot.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. I love that. Every once in a while, you get someone that answers that question, and you can literally feel like you know that little kid. Were you thinking about the future? Were you thinking just in the moment? Were you a happy kid out playing? And
The first memory of all that, I think, was a little younger than 10, maybe 8. It was Aesop's Fables. I was reading Aesop's Fables with my Gemini aunt, and we finished it, and whatever we were reading that day, and the moral lesson of Aesop's fable hit me, and it blew my mind. I was like, wait a minute, somebody 1,000 years ago wrote a story that made me have emotions in me today, and like I feel this right now. Like he's dead and he's making me feel so deeply. how is this possible? And I just thought like being a writer is the coolest thing you could ever be. I could make somebody have an epiphany 3,000 years from now with something I write today. That's pretty cool.
Okay, so where do you place this with the business of writing? Because I see so many writers and I feel for them. And it's just like what we were talking about, narrators reaching out to writers and being afraid of losing your jobs and lack of control. What is your relationship with the business of writing? I mean, you come from a business background, so it's probably easy for you, but how do you marry the joy of the art, who you are as the artist, with the business side of it?
No, I've had a lot of like trauma and healing around that because I'm fragmented. I have the hidden side, the artistic side, and then I have the business side, and they didn't really meet, and one was sort of ashamed of the other, if we're being honest. And so, like you were saying, about the negativity in your heart and sort of how you approach life, I found that I approached even the things I love with a little bit of dread, with a little bit of like, oh no, I hope I don't get found out, or oh no, I hope they don't make fun of me, and like carried that energy through a lot of the things that I did, and had a very rude awakening somewhat recently that, hey, I don't want to bring that energy to the work that I'm doing. I want to do things differently. So I'm as hippy dippy as you can get about it, and as I'm not very businessy about it. I just kind of I I want to be what I want to happen to me. And so I believe in the law of attraction. And the reason I believe is because I've spent a lot of time going, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. And I just created endless situations of I can't take it anymore. So I'm gonna try to just hang out and I'm great. I love this and see how the world responds to that instead.
You're talking to the girl that spent 10 years showing up at an oil company wearing leopard print faux fur and high rhinestone sparkly boots and not understanding why I didn't fit in. Like, you try to do what they say you're supposed to do when you know what your heart wants you to do. It's so much easier, isn't it? Do you feel like it's easier now that you've let that go?
I wish I could go back to my kid self and say, don't listen to any of the adults. Don't listen to society. Don't listen to your teachers. Don't listen to the movies. Don't listen to anybody except your own heart and listen to it and nothing else. I
Yeah.
wish I could go back and give my younger self that advice.
Yeah. And then you think, yeah, so many times I've thought that, but part of me thinks I wish I could go back and tell myself, don't go on a stupid diet. You're gorgeous. Have fun. Be gorgeous. Be the person that they think, who does she think she is? Be that person and then shine a light for other people. But then I think maybe I wouldn't be the person I am now. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you would lose some wisdom if you hadn't experienced the bad things too.
It's weird, it's like the older and like the less attractive I am, as I age away from beauty, the more comfortable I am with myself. So
Yeah.
like, imagine if I had this confidence with like 20 years ago body, but like you can't have it all at once, right? Like in the early years, you're young and you look great and you feel great and you don't know it. And then, you know, later you're old and you don't look as great, but you feel awesome and you can't understand why, who knows?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's all about, yeah, because I was sick quite a bit in the middle a few years ago when I was narrating, and my voice started sounding awful, but I was not going to lose work. And I was not, so I had to learn to act the hell out of it, right? To make up for the voice. Just like I had to overcompensate with personality to make up for what I thought was I wasn't skinny. I was living in LA trying to be
Oh
an
yeah,
actress. So, you know what I mean? I wasn't 90 pounds and blonde.
right.
So,
And the 90s really like ruined it for women and body image stuff. Like they went nuts. Like you had to be anorexic to look normal in
Yeah.
a movie or a magazine or a commercial or anything, and like that's not normal.
And I grew up in the suburbs where the school I went to, most of the kids drove Jaguars, and I took the bus. Like we were like really excited at 15 years old if we got $1 to go and like use the payphone and call boys. And like, it's and I wouldn't trade that for anything because if I had been one of those Jaguar people, I can't imagine who I would be now. I'm not putting them down. Maybe there's some Jaguar people that had a Jaguar when they were 15 years old that are fine now, but it's yeah. I guess we've sorted the entire world out in 42 minutes.
Yeah, we don't need people don't need therapists or religion anymore. They could just rewatch this podcast.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'm intrigued by this writer reach out thing. So do you think that with AI and all the virtual voice offers and people contacting writers, do you think, and also the news in America, are people feeling scarcity? Are they less likely to want their books done? Because the new books are being published all the time, right? I mean, there's an unlimited amount, isn't there?
I mean, I think authors would always want to hear from somebody. I think artists like collaborating, you know. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. I was working in finance and real estate when I wrote my first, I mean, I still am, but when I wrote my first book, I was very much immersed in that world and it's competitive. And so I was used to don't tell them too much, don't share this detail, don't announce it too early, you know, just like that kind of environment. And then I started working with my editor who's the sweetest guy in the world. And he's like, I'll do it 100 times for you until you're happy and, you know, available all the times and goes the extra mile and leaves like nice comments in the Word document when we're working. And I was like, this is night and day, you know, like and he serves, he loves it. And the job is secondary. And what I was doing in during the day was the other way around. And so
Wait, your editor, I think he reached out to, what's your editor's name?
George Varangos,
Yes, he reached out to me. He is the loveliest person on earth, isn't he?
he's the best.
Just so nice. Like, because you get the feeling he genuinely loves and appreciates the writers he works with.
He does. Yeah, I mean, and when I was writing alone before stuff was published and nobody knew, like I lived on those comments and those Word documents because no, like 300 pages that I've agonized over that nobody's ever seen. And then I have this editor leaving, oh, I love that. Oh, you could do this, you know, just the whole thing filled with comments. And it was like friendship, you know, it blew my mind.
Yeah, because and again, we go back to it connected you,
Yeah.
whereas all the fear mongering stuff disconnects you. So I guess it keeps coming back to the same thing. So when did you write your first book? Were you seeing yourself as your character as I'm this corporate person, or had you been writing the whole way through and never lost track of it?
No, I wrote in college and as a teenager, and then in college I started a story, and but never finished it. And then COVID is actually when I restarted. I did two things. Like I was a little cowardly, and I wrote a real estate book. I wanted to hide behind my, you know, just facts and figures and not really put myself out there. And so my first book was a real estate book, but I revisited the first project that I had worked on in college, which is it's a book now that I have Callie on the ropes, but it's also a screenplay. It was originally intended as a screenplay, and it's placed fairly well in some competitions, and I've actually dusted it off and submitted to Blacklist and got a high score recently. So I'm trying to move that forward, but it all started in COVID. Like, you know, we were all locked at home and I just found myself typing.
I think there are two kinds of people in COVID. And the first kind of person found it difficult, couldn't wait to get back, life is normal. And the second kind of person thought, ooh, this is my chance.
I loved it. I'm an introvert. I
Yeah.
loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I loved, I mean, that's when I started these calls. But I have to say, when it comes to corporate jobs and everything, I have an experience talking about curating your own world. One of my first jobs, I was a receptionist at one of those part-time jobs, weekends at a real estate company. And we would go out, I would go with them to the different houses. Oh my God, talk about making dreams. I just think that if I were to have to ever work in like a business environment again, do you get to go to these magnificent houses and dream, and you get to imagine a whole different life every house you see? Do you get to do that?
Occasionally. I mean, I've done a lot of different stuff in real estate. So I did residential, I've gotten into development, I've done commercial leasing, I'm in senior housing now. So I've jumped around in real estate asset classes, but I'm not the pretty house guy. I'm actually the ugly rental building for cash flow guy. I get more
Oh,
excited about an ugly rental building than a mansion any day.
oh, see, I love the houses. I just loved getting to go and see every single one. I even loved going to the furniture stores. I, would, you know, yeah, in another life. Okay, so you've written these books. You've How did you become so adept at being an indie writer? Because you're one of the indie writers I look to that is making a success of the indie side of the business. Did you have that, oh God, should I do traditional? Should I do indie? Did you have that dichotomy going on in your mind? A lot of people, writers I know, struggle when they first start.
No, I never wanted to do, I mean, I wanted to do traditional as when I was younger, but when I really looked at it and then, a lot of Facebook groups with indie authors that talk about their experiences going traditional and then going indie, it was obvious that indie was better, it was obvious. And indie can lead to hybrid, hybrid or, certain books being sold or optioned or whatever. And that would be interesting, and that'd be the best of both worlds, where you have them take a project and run with it, but you still retain all the royalties on, most of the stuff that you work on.
Yeah, that's kind of how we work. We work, with publishers when we can get them, and then on our own work when we can get, and you're more empowered, aren't you? Because I've heard stories from writers that have worked with publishers and they've had a big struggle getting their books back. Like, you don't want to give everything away all at once, right?
Yeah, and I've read about stories of people trying to buy their books back, and or the publisher takes the book, but then they don't release it for 2 or 3 years, so you're just left waiting. Just like there's so much you don't control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you put yours out there because I had a little jump of excitement when you got back to me because you send emails and you don't expect. And this is the other thing I tell Nick, because Kim will vouch for this. I am always telling people, reach out to writers. And it puts people off because you're only going to get one or two responses for every like 10 reach outs, right? But the rule for me was only reach out if you love the book. And then when they respond, like you did that time, it's super exciting because it's a passion project.
It was cool. George, my editor, after he edited my real estate book, yeah, the first book I wrote, but and then we went into fiction. But I noticed that he was an indie author, and he had a book out, and I bought it and read it and loved it. And so that was a really cool thing right off the bat, is that my editor also is an author, and I've read his books, and so it was yeah,
The
yeah.
connections, doesn't it feel good to like it, like, I mean, you probably have this in I never had this in my corporate office. I had one person that I admired. Now there's so many people I work with that I admire. You learn from and you admire and you're just like, can't believe they're your friend.
Yeah.
It's like authors like you. So and it was an honor. And Ali has other books out. So if people are looking for good quality work, he said he's open to people reaching out to him. You're gonna hate me for that one. You'll have 600 narrators sending you emails.
Why not? Make some new friends.
So I ask everyone at the end of the call, if you could leave the audience that's going to be watching this for the next 100 years, if they take anything away from this conversation. Well, first, before I ask that, how do you feel now that you've embraced the woo-woo side of yourself? Do you feel like you're a different person than you were before?
Yeah, yeah. People used to say to me like, you carry so much weight on your shoulders. You take yourself so seriously. Um, you need to learn to love yourself. And I had no idea what any of those sentences meant. And like I finally get it now. And so yeah, I'm totally changed.
So how much do you write? Do you just wake up and have a certain time that you write every single day, or do you write when the muse strikes you, or how do you do it?
Lately, it's been really weird. I've been working on everything. So I'm working on a whole bunch of different things in real estate, but on the author side, I'm working on the new series, the Amir Zain, the metaphysical, spiritual thriller series. It's a series of novellas, shorter books. I'm brushing off two screenplays for submissions. I'm writing Substack articles
Wow.
here and there, and I'm also writing scripts for YouTube and having them actually AI narrated and read, trying to create get some followers on a YouTube channel that I just started.
How much of the day do you spend writing? Or do you have rituals? Do you have a strict schedule?
I write in between real estate things.
Okay, so you multitask, you do a lot then.
I'm yeah, insane with like I do 10 things at the same time every day, all day.
Okay, so this brings me to, if you leave the audience that's going to be watching this in 100 years or so, if they take anything away from this call, anything at all, what would you want to leave them with?
It's not my quote, but I would leave them with circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. So whatever's in front of you, whatever the situation in front of you, doesn't matter. The only thing that you get to control, the only thing that matters is what are you holding? You know, that's the only and I if I could have lived my whole life with that understanding, things could have been different, and I'd love for anybody to hear that and apply that.
I love that. That connects with what Kim told me that one time that changed my life. Um, I can't remember what I was so upset about, but she said when you breathe in to the count of 4, hold the breath for 7, and breathe out to 8. So I think whatever way you do it, if you breathe or do something, you connect to yourself, right? When your
Yeah,
mind is racing and you're running around like crazy. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Okay.
Focus on your breath and I like affirmations, so like I am, and then whatever the positive state of being that you want to be in is.
I love that. I love that.
Like I am grateful right now, like just simple, and just kind of stay in that.
And it jars us out of that fake world that we kind of like sometimes buy into. It brings
Yeah.
you back to yourself.
Well, Jesus said it really nicely. He said, what was it? Why comment on the splinter in your eye when I have a log in mine? Like it's like I discovered I have a log in mine, so like I'm not gonna character assassinate the world. I'm just gonna keep this clean.
I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Thank you.
meet with me today. This has been, Kim says thanks. This was fun. Thank you for joining us, Kim. And Ali, this is your books. I'm going to link to your books in the about section and your website, whatever. I'll put your information in the about section. If anybody watching this call wants to reach out to Ali and read his books, listen to the Bainford series. But yeah, it's been a pure delightful. You were one of the loveliest people I've worked with and a brilliant writer.
Oh,
And
likewise.
it's been an
Thank you.
honor.
Thank you, Daniela. It's such a pleasure being here with you. Thank you for inviting me on. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for doing such an awesome job with the books, and I hope we do more stuff together.
Yes, yes, I'm always here. And that's the other thing I hope people get from this call. If narrators are watching this call, this right here, send letters to writers. Don't let it put you off, because the best part about this job is I now know Ali. I've gotten to work on the Bainford series, which made my year. So it's worth it. It's just worth it. We just have to reach out to each other. We narrators and writers, we can tell stories to the world, can't we? So I will check out your other books. Thank you so much, Ali.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye, Kim. Bye. Bye.